As the sun rose, the upscale neighborhood of Maplewood in suburban Orlando was wrapped in peaceful tranquility. Our two-story White House glowed softly in the morning light. In the well-maintained front yard, colorful roses and marigolds bloomed proudly, while the deep green lawn sparkled with morning dew. It's been 5 years since we moved to this neighborhood. I, Jennifer Morrison, work as a pediatrician at a major local clinic, while my husband David runs a construction company. Together with our precious 5-year-old son Aiden, we've been living an ideal life here. Every morning, I wake up at 6 a.m. to the alarm clock and prepare breakfast for my family. It's my daily routine to brew coffee in the kitchen while gazing out the window at the misty garden. The nurses often say, "Doctor, your family must be so happy," when they see me in my apron preparing meals. Indeed, while I'm a composed physician caring for children's lives at the clinic, at home I strive to be a devoted wife and mother. David started Morrison Construction at a young age and has grown it into one of the region's leading construction companies. His handsome appearance and sociable personality have been great assets in business. He enjoys strong trust from clients, and new projects keep coming in one after another. 10 years ago, we met at a garden party hosted by a mutual friend. At the time, I was busy as a medical student, but I was captivated by David's passionate drive to start his business. "I want to support your dreams too," he said as he held my hand, and I still vividly remember the look in his eyes. My father, a physician himself, highly praised David's sincerity and passion. After dating for 2 years, we got married, and with my father's support, David established his long-desired company. As a pediatrician, I've quietly supported my husband's dreams. Understanding and supporting each other's aspirations, we've been seen by others as an ideal couple. And now, our greatest treasure is our 5-year-old son Aiden. With his bright and energetic personality, he's popular at kindergarten. He's especially attached to his father David, always calling "Daddy, Daddy" on weekends. Weekday mornings follow a set rhythm. I wake up at 6 a.m. and start preparing breakfast. At 6:30, we have breakfast together as a family. The toaster fills the air with a pleasant aroma, and Aiden always smiles, saying, "Mom's toast is the best." From 7 a.m., it's time to get Aiden ready. I help him change into his uniform, check his bag contents, and make sure he's properly groomed. At 7:30, I take Aiden to the school bus stop. After seeing him off with an energetic "bye" and wave, I head to the hospital by 8 a.m. David always leaves early for work. Lately, I've been hearing him say, "I have an important meeting today," more frequently. However, our life has been gradually changing recently. David's return time has been getting later and later, with fewer opportunities for family dinners. His weekend work has increased, and Aiden has been showing lonely expressions more often. "Daddy, can we go to the zoo this weekend?" Aiden asked hopefully during breakfast one weekend. "Sorry, I have an important meeting this weekend too." Aiden's expression clouded at David's words. "Next time, Aiden." I gently embraced my son's shoulders as I said this, but a small worry had begun to sprout in my heart. It's natural for work to get busy during a company's growth phase. While telling myself this, I couldn't shake an odd feeling about David's recent behavior. He never let go of his mobile phone and spent late nights on work calls. But I convinced myself this was all for the family. Morning in Maplewood breaks quietly again today. In the soft light streaming through the windows, our family's daily life flows peacefully and surely. That day too, the same morning light enveloped our house. Having woken up before the alarm clock, I quietly began getting ready in the dim light filtering through the windows. At 6 a.m., I started my usual breakfast preparations. David was already dressed and facing his laptop in the study. Lately, I could only silently watch my husband starting work so early in the morning. As the aroma of coffee began wafting from the kitchen, Aiden came down the stairs. "Good morning, Mom." I gently stroked my son's hair as he sat at the table with a still sleepy expression. I set out the usual breakfast of toast, scrambled eggs, and fresh fruit on the table. But David's seat remained empty. He had already left for work, saying he had an important early morning meeting. "Mom, is Dad coming home early today?" To Aiden's innocent question, I answered with a smile. "Dad's busy. But let's have fun together, just us." I thought I saw a fleeting shadow of loneliness in my son's eyes. At 7:30, I took Aiden to the school bus stop as usual. Under the clear blue sky, my son ran energetically with his big backpack. "Be careful," I called out, and Aiden turned back with a smile and waved. No one could have imagined then that this would be his last smile before such a tragedy. At 2:30 that afternoon, I was seeing patients for routine checkups at the hospital. Outside the window, the spring weather was pleasant, and it was almost time for children to leave school. Then suddenly, a phone call shattered our peaceful daily life. "Dr. Morrison. It's an emergency." My heart leaped at the nurse's distressed voice. "Aiden has been in an accident, at the intersection of Maple Street." In that moment, my composure as a doctor clashed violently with my emotions as a mother. I entrusted my current patient to a colleague and rushed to the emergency ward. As I ran, I prayed desperately in my heart. "Please, Aiden, be safe." The details of the accident gradually became clear. While Aiden was crossing at a crosswalk on his way home from school, a black SUV suddenly appeared. The car didn't even stop at the stop sign before hitting him. A neighborhood housewife witnessed it. "Call an ambulance quickly. A child has been hit by a car. Please tell us the exact location." "The intersection of Maple Street and Oak Avenue." The neighbors protected Aiden until the ambulance arrived. The weather was clear, visibility was good. How could such an accident? When I reached the emergency ward, Aiden had already been taken to the operating room. David came running breathlessly to where I stood frozen in the white corridor. "Jennifer. How's Aiden?" My usually composed husband's voice was trembling unusually. "He's in surgery." We sat on the long bench in front of the operating room, silently waiting for results. The clock hands seemed painfully slow. Though I've witnessed countless surgeries as a doctor, I've never felt waiting time pass so slowly. David kept standing up and sitting down, pacing the corridor restlessly. There was no trace of my usually calm husband. And then it happened. "Excuse me," a young nurse approached us. "This smartphone was found at the accident scene. Could it belong to someone you know?" The screen of the smartphone she held out clearly displayed. "Unread message from David." Before I could let out a "what?" David suddenly stood up. "I'll check it." My husband snatched the phone and hurriedly walked away down the corridor. I couldn't hide my confusion at this abnormal reaction. Why? As a doctor, as a wife, as a mother. Various emotions swirled within me. The operating room light was still glowing red. At that moment, I saw the head nurse walking quickly down the corridor toward us. She had worked with me as a colleague for many years, an experienced veteran. Her usually calm expression was unusually stern today. "Doctor," she sat beside me and gently took my hand. "There are some details about Aiden's condition that I need to discuss with you." At that moment, my experience as a doctor made me sense the gravity of what I was about to hear. But right now, I'm just a mother worried about her son's life. Trying desperately to control my trembling hands, I listened to the head nurse's words. David still hadn't returned. His absence made the situation feel even heavier. My husband, who would normally be supporting me, had disappeared with that smartphone. The cold air in the corridor intensified my anxiety. Sitting on the long bench in front of the operating room, I remembered Aiden's smile from this morning. "Mom, can we play in the park today?" The image of my son's bright-eyed face was burned into my eyelids. If only I had hugged him tighter then. If only I had told him to be more careful. Regret as a mother squeezed my heart. I could hear the busy sounds of the emergency room in the distance. The reality that I was now completely powerless in a place where I usually examine patients myself. As a doctor, I've faced countless patients and their families, but being in this position myself, I finally truly understood how they felt then. The hands of the white wall clock moved slowly through the heavy air. It had been 2 hours since Aiden's surgery began. During that time, David had appeared several times, but only to pace the corridor restlessly. The hand gripping the smartphone seemed unusually sweaty. "It'll be okay, Aiden will surely." As I tried to speak to him, my husband quickly disappeared down the corridor. I saw an unfamiliar color of anxiety in his back. In our 10 years of marriage, I had never seen my husband like this. When the corridor clock struck 4 p.m., I heard footsteps from beyond the heavy door. "Mrs. Morrison." Turning around, I saw 2 detectives standing there. The older detective had a gentle expression, while the younger one held a notebook. "I'm his mother," I said. The older detective raised his hand to stop me as I tried to stand. "Please remain seated. We apologize for keeping you waiting. I'm Detective Johnson, and this is my partner, Detective Murphy." At this time, David had disappeared to the end of the corridor for his third phone call. The detectives looked around, exchanging glances as if confirming my husband's absence. "We've reviewed the security camera footage," Detective Johnson began quietly. "We've discovered new facts about the vehicle involved in the accident." My heart began racing. Though I've faced countless critical patients as a doctor, the tension of this moment was unlike anything I'd experienced before. The black SUV had been lurking around the area for several days prior, following the school route schedule. It took me several seconds to comprehend what those words meant. Premeditated. Someone intentionally. Just thinking about it sent a paralyzing fear through me. "We're currently working to identify the vehicle." Part of the license plate was captured on the security camera. Detective Murphy opened his notebook, checking information written in small letters. At that moment, David returned from the corridor. When my husband saw the detectives, he momentarily stopped, visibly tensing. "Ah, Mr. Morrison. We have some questions for you." David nodded nervously at Detective Johnson's voice. "Where were you yesterday afternoon?" "Oh, at the company, of course. Had an important meeting with clients." "Until what time?" I think, until after 7. I could tell David's voice was shaking. Usually, my husband would answer in a clear, decisive tone. He typically keeps precise track of his appointments with clients. During the questioning, David avoided making eye contact with me. The smartphone he gripped in his right hand was increasingly bothering me. That message, why didn't my husband want to show it? Ma'am, Detective Murphy turned to me. Have you noticed anything unusual lately? For example, changes in your husband's behavior? That question brought a flood of all the oddities I'd been sensing. Increasing overtime. Weekend work. Increasingly late return times. Never letting go of his mobile phone. And today's abnormal reaction. Actually. I began speaking, carefully choosing my words. Meanwhile, David continued showing his restless behavior, pacing the corridor. Occasionally making calls in a low voice. Excuse me, I need to call the company. Once again, my husband tried to stand to take a phone call. At that moment, Detective Johnson's gaze fixed on the smartphone in David's hand. A nurse quietly sat beside me and whispered concernedly. Ma'am, your husband seems quite agitated. Yes. I managed to answer. He's usually so calm. Confusion and anxiety swirled within me. Aiden's surgery was still ongoing. Meanwhile, my husband's behavior was clearly strange. The message from David displayed on the smartphone. Everything seemed to be pointing to something, but I couldn't see the truth. The operating room door opened, and the attending physician came out. I stood up reflexively. Aiden's life was the most important thing. That's all I should be thinking about now. But in the corner of my mind, there was a persistent warning-like anxiety. Was there something lurking behind this accident that I didn't know about? The detectives quietly stood up and left, saying, "We'll be in touch." As I watched their backs disappear, I steeled my resolve. To protect my son, and to know the truth, I had to get to the bottom of this anxiety. Even if what awaited me was a truth I didn't want to know. As night began to fall, Aiden's surgery ended. The doctor explained, "We've saved his life, but he's still in critical condition." Through the intensive care unit window, I watched my son's small body surrounded by countless tubes and machines. At that moment, I heard hurried footsteps from down the corridor. The two detectives from earlier approached, accompanied by several more police officers. Their expressions carried the tension of a major development. "Mrs. Morrison," Detective Johnson addressed me. "We deeply regret to inform you, but we have an important report." As I turned at his voice, I could see David's face turning visibly pale. My husband collapsed into a nearby chair with unsteady steps. "We've identified the vehicle involved in the accident," Detective Murphy continued, opening his notebook. "And the person driving it. It was a Morrison Construction Company car." At those words, I felt my heart stop for a moment. My husband's company car. Why? "And we've determined this was a premeditated crime by the owner of this smartphone, a woman named Rachel Coleman." "Rachel?" I managed to say. "David's accounting manager." At that moment, various scenes raced through my memory like a film reel. A young, beautiful woman I'd seen at company parties. Her figure earnestly conversing with David. Her strangely hostile glances toward me. It all seemed to exist for this moment. David covered his face with both hands, his shoulders trembling. I didn't know that she would go this far. "Rachel has already been arrested," Detective Johnson continued quietly but firmly. During questioning, she admitted to having an affair with your husband. Those words sank heavily into the hospital corridor. Something inside me crumbled audibly. The trust built over 10 years of marriage shattered in an instant. According to her testimony, Detective Murphy continued, she considered Aiden's existence an obstacle. She believed that, if she destroyed the family, David would choose her. Rachel Coleman was a talented employee who had rapidly risen through the ranks in Morrison Construction's accounting department. Raised in a wealthy family, she was known for her meticulous personality and high work performance. However, beneath that surface lurked an obsession that no one had noticed. The affair began a year ago, the detective continued. While the relationship was initially good, when your husband recently tried to end it, her behavior changed dramatically. David let out an inaudible sound. The man who was once my husband was no longer there. The facts revealed by the investigation far exceeded my imagination. Rachel had spent over a month meticulously studying Aiden's route to school. Security camera locations, blind spots, times with low traffic. It was a perfect plan calculated down to the last detail. She used the company car without authorization, using her authority in the accounting department, Detective Murphy added. Even the escape route after the accident was carefully planned, but dropping her smartphone at the scene was her only miscalculation. At that moment, the meaning of the message from David displayed on the smartphone all connected. It was a message she had intended to send to my husband. Probably to inform him of her successful crime. In the security camera footage from the scene, Detective Johnson continued, we can clearly see the car under full control, deliberately changing course toward Aiden. This is clearly attempted murder. Outside the window, darkness had completely fallen. As I watched my son sleeping in intensive care, I felt all my emotions freezing. As a doctor, as a wife, and most of all as a mother. I couldn't accept this reality. But this was our new reality. Ma'am, a nurse quietly approached. There's been a change in your child's condition. I stood up. Right now, I must think only of Aiden. Everything else can wait. Much, much later. What I need now is only strength as a mother. Composure as a doctor. David was still slumped in the corridor chair. We would probably never recover the husband of those days. The investigation report continued. Rachel's cell phone contained numerous pieces of evidence of her relationship with David. Photos of them together, messages full of expressions of love. Each one revealed a side of my husband I hadn't known. A large number of photos of your family were found in her home, the detective's voice continued. Especially photos of Aiden, many of them showed signs of being damaged. At those words, I couldn't help but shudder. The image of a stranger damaging photos of my child made me feel nauseous with revulsion. Interviews with Rachel's colleagues also revealed her abnormal obsession, Detective Murphy added. They frequently heard statements like, David is mine, and, if only that child weren't around. David couldn't even raise his face, just hanging his head. The man I once loved now appeared pitiful, crushed under the weight of his sins. As a mother, as a wife, and as a woman. Various emotions swirled within me. Deep love for Aiden, anger and disappointment toward my husband, hatred and fear toward Rachel. And above all, regret at not having noticed the madness lurking so close by. Dr. Wilson from the operating room, a nurse approached hurriedly. About Aiden's condition, he needs to urgently consult. I took a deep breath. This is no time to be carried away by emotions. Saving Aiden is the only thing I can do right now. The collapse of 10 years of marriage, my husband's betrayal, all must be put aside. Walking down the white corridor, I was thinking about my future life. This incident would completely change how our family exists. But it's not the end. It's a new beginning. I can build again from scratch, just Aiden and me. I headed to the operating room without looking back. David's sobbing voice faded into the distance. On a morning when soft spring sunlight streamed into the hospital room, Aiden opened his eyes. 2 weeks after the accident, my son had miraculously recovered from his critical condition. Though still connected to many tubes and devices, there was a definite spark of life in those small eyes. "Good morning, Aiden." I gently kissed my son's forehead. Aiden gave me a small smile in return. Though he couldn't speak much yet, that smile gave me hope to live. The days immediately following the accident were like being in the middle of a storm. Rachel Coleman was arrested on attempted murder charges, and subsequent investigation revealed the full extent of her plan. Due to the revelation of the affair and the incident, Morrison Construction completely lost its credibility in the construction industry, with clients canceling contracts one after another. I recently heard rumors that David is now working at a small real estate company in a distant provincial city. I firmly refuse to let him visit Aiden. I have no intention of allowing them to meet until my son's emotional wounds have healed. Still, I don't intend to live in hatred. Just keep moving forward. That's my choice as I build a new life with Aiden. Last week, news arrived that Rachel Coleman's trial had concluded. In addition to premeditated attempted murder, she was found guilty of unauthorized use of company vehicles and embezzlement, receiving a 12-year prison sentence. I heard that in court, she continued to maintain until the end that it was all for love. David completely lost control of his company and had to hand it over to new management. The affair and the incident caused him to completely lose credibility in the construction industry. Recently, I heard he's working at a small real estate company in a distant city. I firmly refuse his requests to see Aiden. I won't allow them to meet until my son's emotional wounds have healed. Nevertheless, I don't intend to live consumed by hatred. Just keep moving forward. That's my choice as I build a new life with Aiden.